Hello and welcome. In today's episode, we will deep dive into the first wave of Detroit Techno from around the year 1987 to the year 1989. And we will recreate these sounds using mainly Korg Volcas, but also a special guest in this episode. So stay tuned. But first, let us deep dive a bit into the history of first wave of Detroit Techno. And this is indeed a fascinating story, with both a lot of individual stories as well as political social aspects, worthy of a full Netflix special, in my opinion. I will now, however, try to cover this in just a few minutes, and I will also only focus on the musical aspects of this genre. The story started with the Three Musketeers, Joan Atkins, Derek May and Kevin Saunderson, also known as the Belleville Three. These guys met already in high school and they bonded over their interest in electronic music when listening to acts like, for example, Kraftwerk, Parliament, Prince or the B-52s. And in the mid-80s they started also to travel a lot to the neighboring city Chicago, where they encountered Chicago House. And they thought, why not have also a Detroit sound? First success came for Derek, also known as Mayday or Rhythm is Rhythm, with the track Strings of Life, which became a huge dance floor hit in the US, but also overseas in the UK. And this caught the attention of Neil Rushton, that was at the time A&R for the record label Virgin in UK. According to an interview with Derek May in the documentary High Tech Soul from 2006, it was Derek himself that had to pay privately for the first ticket to fly over to the UK to meet with Virgin Records, but the meeting was not in vain. The result of these meetings was that they decided that Derek should try to gather some of his musical partners back in Detroit, and they should put together a compilation, which they planned to call The New House Sound of Detroit. And they collected 12 tracks that was mainly created by the Belleville Three, but also featured Blake Baxter and also Eddie Flashing Volcas. But just before releasing this compilation in 1988, they added the word techno to the title. It was said it was Johan that wanted to add this, probably inspired from track number 8 on this compilation, which was called Techno Music. So in the last second, the name of the compilation was changed to Techno, the new dance sound of Detroit. And probably this was because they wanted somehow to separate themselves from Chicago, since Chicago was the house scene and now Detroit was the techno scene. And the rest is history. I would say that this compilation was first of all kickstarted Eurodance in the collaboration with the UK scene, but also later kickstarted the second wave of Detroit Techno together with Tresor, the label from Berlin in Germany. But these are stories for a later episode. But now to create our own first wave Detroit Techno track. And this time I'm gonna pretend that I was asked to make one of the tracks on this compilation released in 1988. So, the characteristics of early Detroit Techno is actually this quite similar to Chicago House, but some significant differentiators. It is slightly higher in tempo, we're talking probably 128 BPMs or higher, but still not as high tempo as the second wave would be later. It also included more like piano sounds and string sounds. Of course you have the very famous chord stabs. And it also featured what they called breakdowns, where you actually cut the drums for a while and played only a melodic part in your track. I've decided also I want some piano chords in my track. And here the Volcas are not super great in creating piano sounds. First I thought I would use some samples from the Korg M1, but then I remembered that the M1 was not really available until 1989. But then I remembered I have this one, the Yamaha FB01. So this little clock radio synth actually has the same sound chip as the Yamaha DX21 or Yamaha DX100. And this was available already in 1986. And with this one I can actually create a quite decent piano sound that I will use for my track. And here I could choose to sequence this unit, but however, since there still is no Volca sequencer available, so to bring it into the Volca universe, my best option is to sample it and import it into my Korg Volca sample. And now, when I have imported these piano samples into my Korg Volca sample, sounds like this. I can use these samples to create a really cool old school piano groove. And I will also use the Korg Volca sample to add some additional drums to the mix. And there we have the piano groove for my old school Detroit Techno sound. And next I will need some stabby chords, and for that I will use the Korg Volca Keys. And with the Korg Volca Keys it's quite easy to get those chords. Start with the standard waveform. Just go to 5th mode and add some feedback also on the built-in delay. Okay, it's done. So let's just create a quick pattern here. Nice, let's hear how it sounds now when I add the piano riff. Wonderful! We're definitely on our way to old school Detroit techno sound. Now we have the main ingredients of our jam, but before we start the jam we need to add some more components. So first I will add some additional drums using the Korg Volca drum. I've just created this simple drum patch. And I will also add some sounds from the Volca FM. I've used this preset patch, Chevy Bass, that I just adjusted the velocity slightly and I created a pattern that sounds like this. And finally I created this acid bass line on the Volca bass that sounds like this. And as you hear, I've also added some reverb and delay to make it a bit more exciting, and I've added that using the Korg NTS-1 I have connected to my FX loop. So that's it, we're ready to jam. a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this journey into first wave of Detroit Techno. Feel free to like, comment or subscribe, it really makes me happy. And the next episode we will continue into Eurodance. So, until next time, ta-ta!